You're listening to Gotham Talk Radio's In Your Face Politics, hosted by New York politicos Brad Gerstmann and David Schwartz.
All right, let's jump on.
Let's bring Brad. Introduce our great guest. And by the way, it's not going to be a tea party, even though I love Kevan. This is not going to be a tea party. I know you're going to bring Kevan on. Kevan,
let me do the proper introduction.
Kevan, what do you think of the Knicks this year? You think Melo's going to?
By the way, I switched to the Nets.
Kevan,
anyway.
It's not going to be an easy time. It's not going to be a tea party interview. We love you. We respect you. But we got to get to the hard issues. Brad,
all right,
introduce our great guest.
We have the Nassau County legislator, Democratic leader of the legislature, Kevan Abrahams. Mr. Abrahams, welcome to Gotham Talk Radio this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. It doesn't sound like it's going to be easy at all, but
no, David,
come on. This is Brad speaking. What do you think of the Knicks this year? Do you think Melo's going to have a good year?
You know what? I'm done with the Knicks anyway. I bought Nets season tickets, and I'm moving to Brooklyn. But anyway, Kevan, thank you for joining Brad Gerstmann and David Schwartz here on Gotham Talk Radio. And you know we love to talk about local politics. And when we do, there's no better person to bring on than yourself. You're always very candid with us, and now it's more important than ever to be candid with us and with the listeners. Is what is going on in Nassau County with the finances? It just looks to me that the numbers are so big, the sides are so far apart. NYFA has put their hands in their pocket. The idea for the people, let's speak about the people for 1 second, is we want government that works. And right now, it doesn't appear that government is working. What is your take on this?
Well, I think to examine where we are now, you have to look at where we were. 2-3 years ago, the county had a surplus. Yes, there was expenses that were coming down the pike that were going to be very formidable and very large obstacles for the county. But at the same time, we were operating with a surplus. Just as you know, earlier this year, the county controller announced that we were operating with a deficit. Now, I think Ed Mangano, I like him as a person. I think he's a very nice and pleasant person. I got to tell you, being in leadership for the last 8 months, I have nothing negative to say about the guy personally. But his fiscal decisions have made the county situation worse. Yes, we're in a bad economy. Yes, there are constraints and obstacles that have to be developed to be able to negotiate with our union, to be able to get savings. But this situation has been made worse over the last 2.5 years, not better. And at the end of the day, those decisions are now hampering the county from moving forward. And at the same time, it's making the decisions of NYFA, the Fiscal Control Board, to make it harder for them to be able to do their job, to administer, to ensure the county's doing the right thing.
Well, Kevan, that answer's all well and good, but this is real. Everything that I hear on these issues, it's just political posturing, and we have to get beyond that. We have to get beyond that in this county. It is an embarrassment. It is unconscionable, these social service cuts that have taken place, and I understand both sides of the argument, but there comes a time where the 9 Democrats, or there are 8 Democrats, there are 9 Democrats, the 10 Republicans, have to get together and with the county executive and come up with a solution to make sure that the most needy in our society they won't go by the wayside. How do we do that? How do you get together with Mangano and your great presiding officer over there? And I'm very sarcastic about that, I want you to know. But get together and make something happen. Come up with a resolution. You had neutral organizations that have tried to negotiate a deal between you and the county executive. Where is that going, and why can't we come up with a resolution?
Oh, well, to answer your last part first, the neutral organizations, I'd rather not mention what they've been trying to do, because obviously they have board members and they have people that they're accountable to, and I want to make sure that people are not hearing what I'm divulging first. I want to give those opportunities to those neutral parties to explain that to their appropriate board members at their appropriate time. That being said, I've made it a mission to meet with the county executive since I became leader. I started meeting with him before even I became leader. We all knew that this was a tough fiscal time in the county. Granted, youth sport agencies, and this is, again, I don't want to make it sound like political posturing, but the fact remains, youth sport agencies have nothing to do with bonding, in which what the county executive is pushing. The county executive is saying because he doesn't get the bonding, he has to make these cuts. Well, we passed the Red Light Camera Fund, which the county executive was a part of the legislature at the time, a fund which designates guaranteed revenue for every single youth and health and human service program in Nassau County. However, the Republicans in the majority decided to remove that funding, therefore allowing this political shenanigans to happen all over again of what these agencies have gone through for the last 25 years. So when they took that move, that basically took all the gloves off and put them as a pawn in this political process. For the last 2.5 years, they've been exempt from that. Regardless of the county's fiscal constraints, everyone recognized that that fund was a designated revenue stream for these programs. And now that money is going to go right into the general fund and not towards these programs, to me is unconscionable. And we didn't take that practice. We didn't take that position. The Republican majority did. The county executive did with their legislation to repeal that law. So from our standpoint, it's very simple. Youth board agencies have no position in redistricting conversations or bonding conversations. To me, tying bonding to youth board agencies is like tying youth board agencies to shuttle launches. I mean, there's no correlation. Bonding doesn't go up, and therefore you can do more funding for youth board. Just like if bonding goes down, youth board funding shouldn't go down. There's no correlation. They've never, ever been tied together by any county executive I could think of going back to the days of Tom Gallardo.
Kevan, it's Brad speaking. If I was Ed Mangano, and since we don't have him on, and we wanted to try to get him on, and he will come on a later date without question. He's been chomping at the bit, but we would have loved to have you on together. Nevertheless, I'm going to play him for 1 second, and I would say that look, the Democratic legislature is blocking bonding by the county, okay, and. But the truth of the matter is that bonding has been going on year after year since virtually since the inception of the county legislature. And he has been up against, I would say, probably the most difficult times financially. And then on top of it, you throw in the fact that nobody's permitting him to bond over some, what I would argue is, or he would argue, I'm sure, are some legacy expenses and costs associated with property tax refunds. So in a way, the Democrats have kind of boxed him in to a position financially that he can't get out of. Anybody who does the math, who has above a 6th grade math degree, and that doesn't include Dave, by the way, will realize that you cannot close this budget deficit. No way, no how, it's impossible. You can cut every single thing and you won't do it without bonding, but you're not permitting it, and everyone else has had the luxury of getting it. How would you respond to that?
Well, number one, we have bonded. I mean, I know it doesn't get out there as much. We bonded on 2 separate occasions. We bonded for the CSEA separation incentive. We also bonded for the police union separation incentive because both ideas, which we agree with the county executive, if we're trying to remove some of the higher paid salaries and not cut the guy on the lower end, we need to do incentive programs like this, which basically, yes, we don't like the idea of bonding for people's termination pay, their sick, their vacation days. We would rather pay that out of the operating budget, but we do understand that we want to get rid of the salary, the $100,000 or $90,000 salary, whether that be in the PBA or the civil service unions. We need to be able to target them with an incentive. So, number one, we've bonded before, and we bonded this year. Number two, I say to this county executive's borrowing practices are totally reckless. I mean, I would direct most of the public, which I've had, to NYPA's comments. Number one, this county executive has talked about, I'm going to cut $150 million and save the county $150 million in 2012. He was supposed to come forward with those savings in February. Now we're in August, and he's barely over $100 million. He claims to be at 120, but according to NYPA, he's only at a little over 100. So he hasn't done what he said he was going to do. Number two, yes, a lot of people will say that we've done these practices before in terms of borrowing for tax certs. We have. under County Executive Tom Suozzi, and I'm really trying not to be partisan, but under County Executive Tom Suozzi, we borrowed for half the money, and we paid the rest of it out of operating. What the current county executive wants us to do, just borrow for the entire amount. The fiscal constraints of borrowing for tax certs totally and not paying it out of the operating budget puts a tremendous hamper on our children and our children's children to be able to pay off that debt. I mean, the Republican message in Nassau County is totally the opposite of the National Party. The National Party talks about less borrowing, which I tend to agree with. But in this case, they're talking about borrowing the entire thing. So we've asked the county executive to examine a practice which, yes, pays a portion out of the operating budget, as little as that could be, and pay a portion out of the bonding. He has not done so.
Kevan, I know it's not supposed to sound partisan, but there's no question, and on this, both sides are guilty. This is partisan. There's no question about it. You know, you have you don't just have 9 people voting one way all the time, 10 people voting the other way all the time, and it doesn't happen by accident. But I just want to, ask you about the executive directors of 5 human service coalitions that were trying to create a compromise and come to an agreement. They were originally ignored and dismissed, but since then, is it true that the county executive has stated that he will accept that compromise, and we still haven't heard from the legislature yet on that compromise, whatever the compromise is? And of course, there's got to be a compromise here somewhere that everybody could live with. That's what politics is all about. It's about coming together and compromising, and not compromising the people that are going to be so affected by these cuts, the mentally ill, low-income teens, chemically dependent, the elderly. These are the people that are going to be really screwed because of the politics that's going on. So can you just answer, is there a negotiation in place that is viable here?
There are multiple negotiations. It's like three-dimensional chess. Obviously, it's not just a negotiation between myself, and Presiding Officer Schmidt. There's negotiations with Mangano, and at the same time, Mangano needs to negotiate things that he believes are doable for Presiding Officer Schmidt as well as for myself. There are multiple parties that have infused themselves. There's the Youth Board agency, the Youth Board Coalition, that has infused themselves into this process, which I'm grateful for. There are other neutral parties that have infused themselves, which I'm also grateful for. But at the end of the day, and again, without the Youth Board, without the Red Light Camera Fund, or with the Red Light Camera Fund, we are not even having this discussion today. I mean, that's why we did the fund. I mean, I could quote Ed Mangano, paraphrase, I guess, to some degree. That was the reason why we did it, because we were tired of seeing these agencies be political pawns. And this is not the first time we've seen it. It happened, and look, I'm going to throw this out there. We've seen it under Tom Suozzi. We've seen it under Tom Galata. We saw them be political pawns under both county executives, both one Republican, one Democrat. So there you go.
Yeah, well, you're right, Kevan. We're running out of time, and we want to thank you so much for coming on. At the end of the day, government is responsible for the neediest and the weakest, and we would expect that, and I think everyone would expect that, government to step up and find a solution for this. And I'm sure you're working hard every single day to do it, and so is Ed Mangano. But we need to create even more of an urgency. So that's
everybody's got to come together.
That's my public service announcement for the end. But Kevan, thank you as always.
Thanks, Kevan.
We'll talk about the Knicks and the Nets next time as we get closer to the season.
Well, let's talk about that once we get this negotiation done. Kevan, is it going to happen? Are we going to come to a resolution on this? Just very quickly, are we going to? In your mind, in the next month, are we going to resolve this?
I lost.
Oh.
Okay. Well,
all right.
Thank you, Kevan. Well, that was good. You know what's great about Kevan is he's, he gets into the nuts and bolts for everybody.
He does, and he appreciates the advocacy. He appreciates the show. And,
look, believe me, he's got to put up with Peter Schmidt. When you start yelling at him, do you think he even?
I'm not yelling. I didn't mean to yell at him, but you know what? He
doesn't get scared. He's not scared of you.
Believe me, I want him to know I have a lot more problems with the other side, and that legislative body has nothing to do with Republican, Democrat. By the way, it's about the people. It's about the people, and there's some good people on the other side too. Don't